there, sports fans, and welcome to a Memorial Day edition of Foul Territory with your host, Mike Smith. Well, we're about halfway through the season, depending on how many rainouts you guys have faced, and things are starting to shake out. We're starting to get a clearer picture of the landscape of both the AA and Single A divisions. A little later today, we'll be talking with everyone's favorite prognosticator, Ron Darling. But before we do that, I just want to give you some of my thoughts on what's going on in the Single A division. Ron admittedly has not been following the Single A with a close eye, so let me just break down what's going on down there. You know, unlike in the AA, where you're seeing one or two teams kind of at the top of each division, followed by a lot of teams that are 500, it's starting to show that in the Single A, there's a definite case of these contenders, if you will, and the teams that are going to do something or going to need to do something in the second half of this season to assert themselves as a true playoff problem for other teams. You know, obviously, if you look at things right now, you've got the Elm Jack Dodgers in first place. They're at 7-0. They're the only undefeated team in the Metro League, regardless of division right now. And, this is going to be a tall order for any team to knock these guys off. I mean, right now, if you look at what they're doing with the bats, they've got, a lineup full. They've got about 6-7 guys there who really have done a tremendous amount of damage against the rest of the Single A pitchers this year. And that's been a big reason for their success. But you can't overlook that pitching staff. You've got two guys in Kevin Briffa and in Bobby Myers who have been dominant this year. You got Briffa, who's allowing just a half a run a game. You've got Bobby Myers, whose ERA is sitting at just over 1 on the year. I mean, those are two dominant arms, and the fact is, they haven't gotten an inning from last year's Cy Young, Danny O'Brien. Now, full disclosure, I don't know what O'Brien's deal is this year. I don't know if he's coming back. I don't know if he's hurt. I haven't spoken to anyone over there. But, assuming that he does come back at some point in the season and contributes even a little bit to this team, that's a scary staff they got right there. And I think it could be the deepest in the Single A. That said, however, the Dodgers are not the only team. They certainly haven't cornered the market on top pitching in the Single A division. You look at one spot behind them at the Prospects, who are sitting at 10-2 on the season. They've got a 1-2 punch that'll go up with just about anybody, including the Dodgers. You've got Angel Cancel, who has something like a .2 ERA, something ridiculous like that. And you've got a second starter in Julian Andre Montserrat, who's, got a low 1 ERA as well. And, with what they've been doing with the bats, especially with Chris Cancel really, hitting the crap out of the ball, this is a scary team. I think for the Prospects, for manager Kenny Oliveri, these next 2 weeks are going to be huge. You've got the Blue Sox, who are another one of those contenders. They're 7-3, 7-4, something like that. You've got the Blue Sox this week, and then next week you've got a showdown with the Dodgers. And I think that, these next 2 weeks, however they may shake out, I think they're going to give us a clearer picture on what we can expect to see in the playoffs in the Single A division. And I, for one, am very excited about it. You've got the Blue Sox, 2 Hots also in the mix. There's a lot of ways that this can shake out for these top 4 teams. And the next couple weeks are going to go a long way to showing us what's going on. Now to switch gears and take a look at what's going on the AA side of things, I'd like to bring on a guest who maybe raised some eyebrows with his last performance on the podcast, but he's a friend of the show nonetheless. Let's bring him on right now. So we're here with the sometimes controversial but always interesting Ron Darling. Ron, how's it going, man?
Good, Mike. Good. I'm good. How you doing?
Not too bad.
Good.
You came on before the season started, gave some of your predictions, some of your thoughts on what was going to happen, and understandably there was some backlash on the forum. What can you say about the way that your predictions were received prior to the season?
Well, I'll tell you, Mike, they're just that. They're predictions. You know what I mean? I call it like I see it. As you know very well, you and I have been doing this for a while now. Obviously, missed the boat on a couple of these teams, couple of these guys. It's tough. This isn't major league caliber talent that we're looking at here that we can, gauge over like a 10-year career where we know what we're going to get every time in, every time out. That hasn't been the case with a lot of these kids and these guys in this league. So, then again, I'm not going to apologize for anything I said, Mike, nor do I think that I should have to. If I'm going to ruffle feathers, then I'm going to ruffle feathers. So we'll just leave it at that. But all that said, plenty to talk about. It's been an exciting, nice early spring here. Memorial Day weekend, obviously trying to get some sun. Hopefully it gets a little warmer. But, it's kind of so just about the midway point of the season here. Even some of the things I wasn't right about, they might be able to turn things around. So.
Well, let's kind of start with that right now because we'll start with my neck of the woods, the Brooklyn Queens division. I think where you were most wrong here as the season has played out is the teams you had, in your top two for the Brooklyn Queens. They've gotten off to a pretty slow start. Obviously, I'm talking about the Storm, who were 3-5, and the Rough Riders, and those were the top two teams you said coming into the year. So
knew you were going there, Mike. Knew you were going there, just throwing it back in my face. But you're right. I can't argue. When you pick a team to be number one, like the Storm, and they start out 3-5, people are going to have questions for you. Me personally, Mike, if you ask me what you're doing right now, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about them being 3-5.
So what in your mind, looking at the way they've played and looking at their record right now, what's kind of been their story in your eyes so far this season?
Well, I think they missed a couple of their big players. I think they were playing the Royals that weekend. There was a weekend where they split with the Royals, average team, And if they would have won one of those games now, they're sitting at 4-4, and they're still in striking distance a lot of the other teams in the league. So they didn't have Howard, I guess, wasn't there. Lanahan wasn't there. Pena wasn't there. That could be, partially maybe an all-star team there with those guys. And then the other losses they've faced good teams, good arms, and they've had some close games. I'll say that I was wrong about their record, but I wasn't wrong about their offense because they are just mashing the ball. They got a couple guys batting around 600, I think. Am I right, Mike? 600 or so?
Well, yeah, like you said, Howard and Lanahan were there. I think Lanahan's hitting 530, Howard's hitting close to 600. But, one of the other things, you were talking about was kind of the transplant of some new guys. And, it looks, especially on the base stealing department, Lamar Burrows from the Cardinals has really added something. I mean, the Storm weren't a team that ran a lot before, but, how do you think this impacts them going forward?
I'll tell you what, Mike, I'm not into that sabermetrics garbage or any of that. I look out, I see good players. I tell you what the good players are going to do over the course of the season. This kid Burrows, though, I'll tell you what, he can run. He can run a little bit. It's a new facet to the team. But as well as anyone, obviously with your light-hitting team over there, the Mud Hens, the pitching is what you're going to need to get it done this year. And I think, Pena is their big guy. He's still got his good stuff, but his good stuff's going all over the place. You know what I mean? I think he's having trouble finding the plate here. And I think he's always, if I'm looking at these numbers right, he pitched 60 or so innings last year, walked 23 guys. He's got a third of those innings so far this year, and almost more than half of those walks. And you're not going to get anything done that way. That's going to take a toll not only on the scores in these individual games, but on his arm. I mean, that's throwing a lot of pitches if you're having 4-ball, 2-strike counts to kids. It's going to take its toll. So they're relying on him a lot, and if he wears down, they're in some trouble. And so is my number one prediction here for this division.
But looking at them right now, I mean, do you still think, obviously the top 8 teams make the playoffs? You think this is going to be a playoff team come the end of the year?
Oh, definitely. Definitely, Mike. Definitely, Mike. I'm not saying that they're going to drop to a 9 seed after I pick up number 1. If they do, I'll be shocked. If they do, you know what I'll do? I'll come out, I'll pitch for you guys in the playoffs. I'll do a big reveal in front of the whole NYCMBL, and everyone will get to see old Ron breaking off some deuce pieces there, something like that. So, but yeah, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. If Pena wears down, I'm a little worried, but I don't think he's going to wear down, and I'm not that worried. So let's see the Storm in the playoffs, and maybe they can reclaim what a lot of people, not just myself, were thinking about him before the season started.
And now the other team obviously being the Rough Riders, and they've been kind of a hard luck team this season. A lot of tight games that they've lost. They're at 3-7 right now, and I don't think anyone expected this. So, what's going on with them?
With them, it's kind of like, you look at some of these quarterbacks that throw up real good, big yardage numbers. They're always playing from behind, so they got to throw the ball, and that's what we talked about earlier with these Rough Riders. They got a great bullpen. That's kind of what they relied on for last year's success, and they definitely had success last year, so everyone thought they were going to repeat it, but maybe they're not having some of the same luck. Some balls aren't finding some holes. Like you said, they're losing tight games. And back to that quarterback analogy here, they're not getting to their bullpen with any sort of lead. So their kind of strengths aren't able to be their strengths like they were in years past. So we're seeing them struggle a little bit. And that's a big surprise for me, Mike. You talk about the Storm. Coming back and weathering this storm and making the playoffs. Rough Riders, that's not a sure thing. It's a lot different if you're 3-5 than if you're 3-7. You know what I mean, Mike? It's tough.
I mean, there's a lot of games to make up, but what can they do to turn it around?
Well, I'll tell you what they could do. They can finish 18-7 if they start to come on offensively, because that's where they're really falling short here. Juan Ramon, he's been their closer. What are you in the Cy Young last year, Mike?
Yeah, won the Cy Young.
Yeah, and he's a good center fielder too. Man can play some baseball. He's hitting almost 400 this year. The rest of the team, no one's over 300. This isn't the AL East that they're playing against. You know what I mean? You got to get the bat on the ball and put some runs in, and that's why those early leads aren't happening. And they're falling behind a little bit. 1-2-0, and Ramon, if he's being wasted early in games, it's a struggle for them.
All right, well, now looking ahead to kind of the top of the division, you got three teams who have started to separate themselves from the pack. You got, my Mud Hens are at 10-2. You got Baisley Pirates.
They are. Look at that, Mike. Look at I can't see you right now. I guarantee you got a nice big. You're smiling like a butcher's dog over there. I bet.
I don't know what that means, but I will take that as a compliment. So you got us at 10-2. You got the Baisley Pirates who beat us, sitting at 9-2, and the Rainmakers who have come on as of late, sitting at 7-3. How do you see this shaking out, these top three spots moving forward?
Well, I think the big kind of X factor here, Mike, and I know you might even be shaking a little bit in your size 11s over there with Taylor Wood, a pitcher for the Rainmakers. They've been winning games without really using him too much. He's their ace, so it's a little bit of a rope-a-dope from them. Getting to a point where they might be able to use some other arms here early, save him for later in the season, and really kind of turn up the heat on everyone else. And that's why, they're in a pretty good spot at 7-3. Granted, that puts them, 2 games behind you guys, but, tough team. They're going to be a tough team.
Well, in addition to Wood, word came down, I think it was last week, that they're bringing back Mike Casely, who's Wood's former teammate at Cornell. Obviously was a dominant starter for the Beers last year. So moving forward, I mean, those are two guys who pretty much, they can match up, and be better than just about any other 1-2 combination in the league. So, I definitely agree with you there. They're going to be tough moving forward for anybody if they got those two guys working in tandem.
That's right. You're right, Mike. You're right on with that, Mike. We, they got Casely back in the mix, and him and Wood. We talked about that earlier last time we chatted. And now you look at this kid Travelino coming in with his goofy delivery. He's a solid number 1 on some teams, definitely number 2 on this team. So if you have a trio like that, move a guy to the pen, you start getting a nice cushiony lead, making your way into the playoffs. This team's going to be tough to beat. I like these Rainmakers a lot. So you better, turn up the heat with your offense, Mike, because, that's kind of, as I predicted, might I say, that might be your guy's shortfall, despite that 10-2 record. Congrats on that.
Well, thanks a lot. So, after the Rainmakers, how do you see, where do you put the Hens and the Pirates there?
I'd say the Hens are probably right behind the Rainmakers, almost even. You got to look. You do have a quick leg up on them right now. But what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to continue to get the pitching that you've been getting, because you're playing small ball, doing a nice job doing it. And that's giving you wins, which makes it look like you're hitting the ball. But, I mean, Mike, as good as anyone, you're not. You got some little guys like a kid Duffy, Myers, the kid from Dickinson. I believe that's where you went too. They're doing the little things. They're making a big difference for your team. They're playing well, but long season, Michael. Don't know how sustainable that is. So
now you look at the Pirates, and this is a team that's built very differently than the Rainmakers or the Hens. What have you seen from them?
The Pirates, the Buccos. I think what their kind of shortcoming is they don't. I don't think they have the arms necessarily, Mike. You understand? I mean, they have Zagoras, who's a good pitcher. Don't get me wrong; they have good pitchers. They just don't have the depth that you're going to see from other teams in this division. We just talked about the Rainmakers. I mean, Jesus, they're going to have a hard time keeping up with them in a 3-game set. And even with your Mud Hens, you got 5 or 6 guys who can take the mound to give you a chance to win each time out. It's not going to be Hamels, Halliday, and Lee, but it's going to be a pretty good grouping. And they really have Zagoras and a handful of other guys who might be able to push out a win or two here. But you know what, Mike, if you get to 9-2 with smoke and mirrors, then who's saying you can't get 15, 20 wins with smoke and mirrors too? So we'll see what happens.
All right, great. So now let's kind of shift our gaze over to the Bronx Manhattan division, where for the most part, I would say that the preseason predictions were pretty much on point. You got the Bronx D-backs doing some good things. The Titans are coming on strong, but the one team that you kind of left out of the mix in the preseason has been the Nassau Yankees, and I think they're doing a fantastic job this year. Have you gotten to see them play at all?
I have, Mike. I have, and you know what? I think last time we talked, it was around my birthday. My wife got me some Crown Royal. I must have been a little foggy from all that because you look around at this team. I don't know how I missed them. You know what I mean? What they're doing is they're hitting the ball from top to bottom. Everybody in that lineup, winds up putting up big numbers every time they play. You know what I mean? You look at who does the stats for you. You're involved with the stats for that website, aren't you?
That's mostly Rich Krupe is the guy that makes sure everything's up there.
Okay, Rich. Well, I'll tell you what, Mike. Shake Rich's hand next time you see him because the man does a real nice job keeping all this nice and tight for us to have a look at. But what shocked me about this Yankees team is nobody in the lineup more than 6 RBIs. You know what I mean? You don't see that a lot. For a team with the success that they're having without a couple guys driving in a lot of runs each game, 6 ribbies. It's crazy, But it's not like everyone there is hitting light either. You got guys, Oates, Feinberg, ripping the cover off the ball, hitting around 500 or so. But I think the big difference for them, kind of to answer your question eventually, is this kid Goldberg. You know what I mean? He's kind of a microcosm of what these guys are doing out there. You see him, prototypical 250 hitter, little bit of pop. You throw him lower in this lineup, he's hitting over 300, turning that lineup over. He's acting like a second leadoff for these guys, and kind of setting the table for Oates and Feinberg, who are setting the table for a real nice season for these Yankees. So, you know what? You're getting me to eat some crow on this one because the Nassau Yankees, so far so good for them. So far so good for them.
Now, obviously the Yankees are having a good season, but I think the one team that's really shown at least stretches of dominance has been these Bronx D-backs moving down from the AAA. In your mind, is this the team to beat come the postseason? Yeah,
I think they are, Mike. I think they sure are. I can't say for sure. Crazier things have happened in this league. There's going to be a game that you guys lose, that the D-backs are going to lose here and there. But when they hit, we talked about pitching for a while here today, but, hitting like this, what's the adage? Good pitching beats good hitting and vice versa. This is a vice versa situation because these kids just ripped the cover off the ball. They got, how many home runs they have this year, Mike? 12?
Something like that, something ridiculous.
12, 13 home runs? I've been watching this league for 5 years. There's whole teams that don't have 12 homers over that time frame. Castillo's been a beast for them. He's like Adam Dunn, only he gets singles too. You know what I mean? He's just been crashing homers. I think he's got 3 or 4 already. But they're going to be a tough team to beat. You're going to have to catch them on an off day. You're going to have to hope they're missing a couple guys. You're going to have to get a great start from your pitcher and then see what you can do over a series. But they're going to be real tough to take down, Mike. I think we all know that.
Well, especially, with the D-backs, you have one of the top frontline starters in the league in Victor Padilla, who's been, crazy unhittable. Will this guy take a loss this season? Look at what he's done.
I don't know, Mike. It's a good question, Mike. You know what he throws? He throws that heavy ball, and that heavy ball, it ain't going to find too many bats in a league like this. You know what I mean? It's tough to get good contact on this guy. Left-hander, throwing hard. You know, the one thing I'm worried about, mentioned it earlier, is kind of the innings. You know, if he eats up too many innings for them, you got to worry about how late season. You know, if he's going to wear down a little bit. But the good news is they do have some other guys who can fill that spot, but no one's really at Padilla's level, not just on his team, but really in the league. But that's the good news about the offense that we talked about. If they have one of those secondary, third guys out there, they're still going to get enough runs to keep it a game and most likely win it. You know what I mean? So it's a tough matchup for anyone, Mike. I don't know if there's a whole lot of teams out there who really pair up well with them or would want to pair up with them, but, you know, that's why they play the games.
And, you know, finally we'll talk about, you know, one team that hasn't quite lived up to, you know, your predictions or expectations from a lot of teams around the league, and I'm talking about the New York Tigers. I mean, this was a team coming in, it looked like they had, you know, two aces, and we're going to really dominate with pitching. That hasn't happened so far. What needs to turn around for these guys to, you know, for them to make a push late in the season?
Yeah, what needs to turn around is these two aces need to turn it around. You know what I mean, Mike? They're struggling. You know, if you can't get consistent outings from two arms that you essentially built your team around, like these Tigers did, you're going to have a hard time winning ball games, and that's what we're seeing with them. I had some high hopes for them, and it's not too late. You know what I mean, Mike? It's not too late. There's a chance that they can put this back together, but it's going to be tough, tall order for them, you know, because it's a big mental game too. If you come in with high expectations, you start, you know, missing spots, losing games. It's tough, slippery slope. So if the Tigers don't count them out, I could see them sneaking in as a lower seed, but, you know, they're going to really need to get what they thought they'd get out of their top arms. So.
Well, Ron, as always, I appreciate you coming on. I'm sure that this will be, you know, your predictions and your assessments will be mulled over on the forum. I'm sure some people will be calling for your head again. But
hey, if they don't like it, Mike, tell them to come find me. You know what I mean? I'm at these games. I'm at all these games. You know, I'll be out there. I'll be the guy trying to get some sun this year if it ever warms up a little bit. But I'll be out there. Tell them find me. I'm happy to talk baseball with all these cats, just like I have been with you. So. Appreciate being on the show again. My thanks to Rich, because the games I can't get to, you know, I got to check out the numbers online, and he does a great job with that. So, a lot of good ball left to be played, my friend. So,
all right. Well, Ron, looking forward to maybe speaking with you later in the season, and you know, if I don't, take care and keep on enjoying the games.
Sounds good, Michael. You too, and good luck to your Hens. Great start, and good luck.
Thanks a lot, man. That was Ron Darling offering his unique insight into the world of the Metro League. Anyway, thanks again, Ron, for coming on. That about does it for me here on Memorial Day weekend. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone back out on the field next week. Hopefully we get some better weather. But until then, stay healthy, stay happy, and keep it between the lines.